Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're checking out Higan and Eruthyll and going through my top 5 beginner tips. Now, the game has officially globally launched, and a massive shout out to the Higan team for sponsoring this video. And if you haven't started playing it and you do want to play the game, I'll have a link in the description so you can join in. But without any further, let's get into it. Okay, so the first thing I want to look at is going to be the banners. And just so you know, I am playing this on my phone. So this is on my phone on maximum graphics. But when we look at the banners in the game, I have a sort of set strategy for mine that I'm working towards. So there is the beginner banner, which costs you 10 summons essentially to get 20 pulls and a guaranteed SSR unit. I like doing that banner first because I still think you'll have time after you've done those pulls to still reach the pity on the other banner. So I like to do that, get myself an SSR, and we'll talk about why SSRs are important in the next tip that we have. But as you can see on this one, I am on day 2 of gameplay. So as you can see, my pity up the top left here is at 80 of 120. Now, what my strategy was, I think that the main one I want to go for is Eruthyll. I just think her kit as a single target damage dealer, she is absolutely fantastic. And we get Media or Media, however you want to pronounce it, as a free SSR to everyone for pre-registration rewards. So she covers us in AoE. But then what Eruthyll does is give us that really solid single target nuke. And you can play her a couple ways. You kind of do want to eventually get a nice tank with her because she can take a fair bit of aggro and die quick. But the damage she deals is absolutely insane, especially when we consider her passive, which is up here. For each debuff on the target, she causes them to take 19% more damage. Now, this is at max level, so it scales up as you level it up. But it causes them to take 19% more, and it stacks up to 5 times. You can get a ton of damage out of this if you have units that debuff the enemy. But then on top of that, when we look at her her ultimate as well, it puts Dark Mark on the enemy, which applies 1 random debuff. So when you use her ultimate, you're going to get 3 Dark Marks, so 3 random debuffs, getting that scaling up to close to 60% at max skills. And then if you've got 2 other debuffs that your allies have applied, you're getting that maximum scaling on single target damage, and she becomes an absolute savage. So getting her, it was my top priority. Now, I luckily pulled her in early summons, but the awesome thing that happens after that is the pity on the banners is shared. So then I moved straight to Gildan, and now I'm summoning for her. She's a fantastic tank. I'm not going to go too deep into it. She's just a really solid tank. So now I want to get her, and the way it's going to work out for me is because I've already got my Eruthyll, it means I can go ahead and get to pity. I've got 40 more summons to do. We may as well do 10 here and see if you guys can bring me some luck. But yeah, I've got 40 more summons to do, and I will 30 after this. And then I'll go ahead and I'll be able to get both of these characters, and then I'll feel really set up. Now, if I do happen to get lucky on this banner and pull her here in my next 30 pulls, I'll go ahead and get my extra dupe on Eruthyll, which we could have her right here. Unless we get an off banner pull. This could be really nice. So this could demonstrate exactly what I'm trying to set up on my account. I think it's this one, is it? No. Okay, we got Rita. Okay, or Rita. I actually really like her. I had her on the soft launch, so she's actually really nice. Great later on as like a buffing / damage dealing unit. I'm actually really happy with that pull. Not too bad. So now I have her, which means, once again, if I get lucky in the next 30 pulls, then I'll switch and I'll get an extra copy of my Eruthyll. Otherwise, I'm just going to take the pity over here on Gildan because I just really want her as a solid tank because I am missing a tank at the moment. So that is the basics behind the banners. I honestly think top priority is Eruthyll, followed by trying to get a copy of Gildan, and hopefully you can get both of them, get lucky and pull one of them, and then get the other one off of the pity. So that's the way I would be playing it personally, and that's the way I am playing it. Moving on from that, the next thing I want to look into is team power and team building in the early game. So once we get into much further on, your team composition and synergies are going to be much more vital. But in these early stages, using your SSRs or SRs that you've got plenty of dupes of can be very beneficial, just due to the fact that if your team's power is equal to or greater than your enemy's team power, you're going to have be dealing more damage and receiving less damage than if your team was less power than the enemy. So sometimes it's obviously a balance in different situations, but sometimes just having more power but a less synergistic team in the early game can be more beneficial. That's why you can see with my team, my main team, that I've gone through all the content that I can do so far in the first 2 days of gameplay. I'm using 4 DPS units. Well, 2 of them are, they're pseudo tanks. They can take a bit of damage, but they're not really tanks. I have no healers. Basically just 4 DPS units. One's more control based. But the reason I'm using this team is because they've been my strongest power team based on raw power. Now, with Euphoria, depending on your units, this is a unit that is going to be very strong for free-to-play players across the board, because you get so many duplicate copies of her or shards through the beginner events, the daily login beginner events. And same with Rocco. From climbing the tower, essentially, you're going to keep getting more shards of her, so she will be another good one that you can get lots of copies of fairly easily as a free-to-play. But as you can see, I'm using obviously the media, which we all get, the unit, which I actually got 2 copies of, but he's the one that I got from the beginner banner, and obviously also my Aluya, who I picked up from that banner. They are my highest power units, and that's why I have focused on them at the moment. Like I said, eventually we'll shift and I'll be using, like, say, Screamer as a healer or something like that. I will go for more synergistic teams, but at the moment, team power and the amount of extra team power you get from having stronger units is quite crazy. So when we look at the difference now, my gear is a bit weaker on her as well, but in general, I've just found that SSRs just have a lot more power than SRs, even this SR that has been taken to 3 stars. So that's what I look at early. Once again, that is just for the early stages. If you're struggling on a stage because you're less power, but you're like, my team's really good, if you've got another SSR or something like that, try throwing them in, leveling them up a bit, and doing it. Now, keep in mind, we do have the event ongoing where you can reset units. Now, in the event tab, it does say that if they're level 50, you can't reset them. I've leveled mine to 50 and I can reset them. So I'm assuming it's going to be at level 51. You can no longer reset. So you've got a bit of room to reset units and shuffle around to try and test, get those teams working if you are struggling in the early game. But team power, very, very important, and the raw combat power of your units for the early stages of the game. Moving on from that, the next thing I want to look at is going into not building too many units. Now, I just mentioned build up a different unit, but we do have that reset feature available to us at the moment. But not building up too many units is going to be how you keep leveling your units to the max available to you at that time. So with my account level, the max level I can get my characters to is level 50 at the moment, and that's what I've done with my units. Now, I could go ahead and get my Screamer, for instance, upgraded. I do have a fair chunk of experience. However, I am getting pretty low on credits. You can see I'm going to start draining a lot of credits that I need, and I don't want to level my Screamer yet. Just because for early progression, getting through that campaign and stuff, if you can just level your main 4 units up further, it's going to be very, very handy for you. Now, once again, with leveling up these units, so I'm holding on to all my resources for when my account levels up, and then I can go ahead and upgrade all these characters through to beyond level 50 essentially. But when we do look at that as well, for my account, the 2 that I'm going to level up past 50 first, because this is a consideration, is going to be Aluya and Media, because that covers my AoE and single target damage. I'm pretty happy with those 2 units. Now, Euphoria and also my copy of Basil, even though I've got the dupe in him, which gives him a lot more power, he's not that great, essentially. So moving into the later game, he's more of a PvP control-based unit. And he's not going to be the best in campaign. So I'm going to leave those two at 50 for now, see how I go in the banner pools for the next day or 2, and then decide whether I want to just screw it, level them up, or if I want to change my strategy and reset them to build up a couple other units. But don't be building like 8-10 units at the start. 4, maybe 5 tops is what you want to have leveled up, so that you can save on all those resources. Now, the next tip that I want to go into is going to be over here. If we go back to the lobby and we jump into the troop, or whatever, I don't know how to pronounce that word, to be honest, but it's going to be the Sailing Theta. Now, this one is a big one, especially because the way the game works is your account level will be blocked at day 1, blocked at day 2 on how far you can progress. So you might not have as much to do in those days, but jump in here and do these. Now, I know some people may not look at these things because they don't find them as fun, but do these things. These things are really nice. As you can see, all you can do is like jump in and you smack a few things around, but you can get some really good rewards. The credits and the experience you get, really, really important. So you can jump in here. There's an expert mode as well where you can get rewards, and then we can always go into the next one. We can do rewards. So clear out this thing, get all those rewards, because like I said, especially if you're struggling for credits or experience, maybe you've built too many units and you need some of that stuff, this is way better than having to spend your stamina farming those things when you could save some of those stamina potions and stuff that we get early on, and you can wait until you're later on in the game farming more efficient stages for harder to obtain materials. So doing this, I think, is a very important thing to do. And then if we go over here I'll go through the final tip that I have, and that is going to be playing the game on manual. So I'm just going to jump into a stage, and it doesn't really matter where I go, to be honest. We'll just jump into one and see what we get. But yeah, definitely putting the game on manual and 1 speed. If you are struggling at stages, like I said, you can consider your team power. That could be something affecting it. But if you put it on manual, a lot of characters do have abilities that just don't work as well with the AI. So putting it on manual, like I said, 1 speed, so making both of those white on the bottom, getting it off of that auto. Depending on different characters, for instance, Aluya, if you've got her, you can assassinate different targets. She often assassinates a back row target and then takes a lot of aggro. Sometimes I prefer her to stay in the front row, and basically just attack the front row target with her skill, so that my other units can keep taking the damage and she doesn't get sniped in the back row. It depends on the situation. Sometimes I like using my Basil's control ability, where he can drag an enemy in, and then I can use the AoE from my media to deal AoE damage in there once I've got the new unit dragged in. Otherwise, if the unit at the back is one that I really want to hit, I can use my Basil's grab where he pulls them in, and then just go ahead and nuke them in the front row with my Aluya. There's a lot of different strategies, but in general, playing on manual is going to give you better results than playing on auto, just from the control you have of your abilities. Now, this is an easy stage, so I'm not going to have any issues, but yeah, play it on manual. And if you are struggling with the manual, the easiest way I find is just tap the skill, and then it slows time, and you can just think about it. So now I've tapped it. If there was multiple enemies, I could drag it around, see what I want to do. And if you're not too sure, you can just drag it up to cancel, and you can cancel it, and then you can just tap again on another ability, and away you go. So playing on manual, definitely, if you're struggling, especially in campaign stages, is going to be a great one for you. But that pretty much covers my top 5 beginner tips for new players. Once again, thanks to Higan for sponsoring this video. And as always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you have an awesome day, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Cheers.